Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and this is my Tech Guy podcast. This show originally aired on the Premier Networks on Sunday, June 2nd, 2019. This is episode 1597. Enjoy. The Tech Guy podcast is brought to you by WordPress. Turn your dreams into reality and launch your website at WordPress.com. Get 15% off any new plan at WordPress.com/TechGuy. It's a beautiful day for Geek Talk. Let's do two. Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. Oh, yeah, it's time. Time to talk computers and the internet and home theater and, digital photography and smartphones and smart watches and all the gizmos and gadgets, G-Jaws and doodads. Or is it Gigaws? I never know. Is it GIF or is it GIF? This is the show where we decide. 8888 Ask Leo is the phone number if you want to call and participate in the game. 888-827-5536. Toll free from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. I'd love to hear from you if you have a question or a comment or a suggestion or, you just want to let me know something, We have a website where we write everything down. Old school, right? James DeRuvo is scribbling, writing as I speak. Puts it up at the website, techguylabs.com, so you don't have to take notes or anything. You have to keep track of this. The website is techguylabs.com. Here's the best part. It's free. There's no sign up. There's nothing. Just go there, techguylabs.com. I'm a little discombobulated here today because you know what I did? I walked out of the... Have you ever done this? You walked out of the house, drove to work, and then realized I didn't bring my phone. In my case, phones. I carry a Samsung Galaxy S10 and a iPhone XS Max, so I got to be on both sides of the fence. Can't choose winners or losers. Got to use iOS and Android. My two favorite phones, although I have to say the Galaxy S10 is great, but it's a little weird. I'm patting my pockets. I don't have a phone. I actually carry my phone in a wallet case, so that's where my driver's license and money and credit cards are too. So I don't know which is worse, not having a phone or not having a driver's license. You know what? Not having a phone is worse. It's a terrible feeling, isn't it? Aren't we hooked to these things? And I thought, so I'm driving thinking, well, I could turn back. I'd be late for the show. Better not do that. Then I thought, well, how bad is it really? Do I really need this phone? No. You can call me on the radio show. I don't need it. I'm in between games. If I were still playing Pokemon Go, I might be shaking a little bit right now. But I'm not. I stopped. I can stop any time, It's an interesting experience. I am so attached to this thing that the idea, and sometimes this is people say, my wife will say this, let's go on a vacation. No, she to her credit, never says this. Let's go on a vacation where we're disconnected. There's no internet, no smartphones, no TV. We'll just enjoy nature. Thank goodness she never says that. But I've heard people say it. Nah. What if something happens? What if something big happens and we're not there to see all the details? Gosh, it feels good, doesn't it? Kind of not connected. Not living day to day, minute by minute on what's going on outside in the outside world. I think, honestly, I often castigate Facebook and Twitter, the social media networks for kind of spoiling the national discourse. Everything's got to be a hot take. It's got to be fast. It's got to be emotional. And then you move on to the next thing. But you can't really blame Facebook and Twitter. It's kind of the way life is today. What about 24-hour news channels, right? It's everything's an emergency. Everything's urgent because otherwise you wouldn't watch. When MSNBC started, I worked for them in the early days, 1996. We did a technology show because it was Microsoft's joint venture with NBC. That's where the name comes from, MSNBC. And Microsoft said, well, you have to have a daily tech news show. And NBC said, no, really? Oh, man. Who do we go to? And I was working for a company called Ziff Davis, big magazine publisher. So they came to us and we designed a show for them. They called it The Site because it was about, this is the early days of the web. It was about a web. The Site, the website. And we did that show every single day for a year and a half. To what one critic uncharitably called an audience the size of a medium high school. Every day, hundreds of people watched every day. It wasn't the most successful show at all time. And then, a great tragedy, 1996, Princess Diana died suddenly. That was terrible. And MSNBC said, let's go to full news coverage, just, for the interim, temporarily. And what happened? Ratings skyrocketed, best ratings they ever had. And they realized something probably CNN always knew, which is the best time to be a news channel is when there's news. The site never came back. We went on hiatus. Hiatus was followed by retirement. Was followed by Leo looking for another job. But an important lesson learned by the news channels. People will watch if there's urgent news. Now, unfortunately, in the world, there really isn't always urgent news, except if you look hard, I guess there is. It just might not be in, your neck of the woods. And so the news channels figured it out. Everything has to. You ever notice you watch one of those news channels, it's always breaking news? Can news break every day? Yeah, I guess. Here's the technology news of the week. Washington Post had this, Tony Rome. According to his sources, we mentioned this yesterday, the Department of Justice has taken up the mantle. FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, was investigating Google, decided, there's nothing here. They decided not to pursue the case way back in 2013. Apparently, according to the Washington Post, the FTC and Department of Justice have made a deal. The FTC says, you do Google, we'll do Amazon. They've split it up. So the DOJ is working on an antitrust investigation of Google. And I guess, I don't know, is the FTC going to do the same to Amazon? The FTC's plans for Amazon are not immediately clear, according to the Washington Post. Problem is the FTC doesn't have the enforcement arm the Department of Justice has. But the FTC did establish earlier this year a special task force, so you know what that means. Nothing. A special task force, it said, would monitor tech and competition, including investigating any potential anti-competitive conduct in those markets and taking enforcement actions when warranted. Okay. So far, Google has really only been spanked by the EU to the tune of, what was it, $5 billion. Amazon hasn't been spanked at all, have they? I don't know. And, of course, the number of Democratic candidates for president are saying we've got to break up these tech giants. They're too big. They're too powerful. What do you think? In our chat room, Scooter X says he thinks Alphabet will retain all 26 letters. I think you're right, Scooter X. Alphabet will retain all 26 letters. It would be kind of disastrous to break up Google, wouldn't it? Or would it? I don't know. You could spin off YouTube. They don't need that. That's a big, Is it I guess they make money on it, but it's not, most of the money Google makes is on search. Split them up. What else would you take away? Google could be just the search, and I guess you'd have to keep advertising. I got to make money. So search and advertising would be Google. You'd have a self-driving car division, Waymo, let that go. Although most of these, they call them moonshots in Google parlance, are big money losers. So what Google's doing, and I have to say this, maybe this is good for the country. Google's taking its earnings from all that search ad stuff and plowing it into stuff like self-driving cars. They have a life sciences division called Verily that's working on some really interesting, potentially life-saving stuff. So they plow it into that. Even though they're going to lose money for decades, they know, or they hope, that the investment will pay off. So if you split them up, is what happens to the moonshots? They crash to Earth. Amazon is arguably even more dangerous to the world we know, right? Because Oh, you probably already noticed most towns don't have bookstores anymore. You have a bookstore in your town? They're dwindling rapidly. That was just the first category. Amazon's now in a pitched battle with Walmart. Walmart says, people still want to go to the store. Amazon says, oh, yeah? Let's see. Wait till we have drone delivery. Nah. Then what will you do? 8888, ask Leo. That's the world we live in. Constant news. That's the latest. But I'm sure you have news in your neck of the woods. Let me know. What's going on with you? 888-827-5536. Let's talk high tech. Oh, they are strong. They are powerful. It's a miracle. I say that every day when I come into work and Kimmy Schaffer's here saying, I'll answer the phones for you, Leo. I say, that's a miracle. She hasn't left yet. Hi, Kimmy.
It's a miracle I made it here today.
Oh, really? You want to talk about it?
Look at how big my coffee is.
Oh, my. If you drink all of that, you're going to be buzzing.
I had to do my other job last night. And
a late night at the...
It was a late night at
the pub?
After the post-Liverpool-Tottenham crowd.
Oh, so you got a big soccer crowd in there. Huh?
Oh, they were slammed during the day. Probably.
So that makes sense. You go to an English pub if you want to watch soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah, or football, as they call it.
So I got the residual effects of that.
I'm so sorry. I am so sorry.
You're a little bit punch drunk today, and I'm just running on fumes.
I don't know if I'm punch drunk, but I did forget my phone. I mentioned that. I feel a little weird, but I feel good.
I think I've done that once. On the way to the city, I was already on the bridge, and I realized I didn't have it.
Yeah.
So that was...
It's strange.
I just had to leave it. But if I get down the street, I'll turn around.
If people need me, I always have the... my text messaging goes, Apple's messages goes to my Mac, my Google Hangouts goes to my PC. So I don't really, people can reach me. They can't call me. I guess they could even call me. No, my computer would ring. So what do you need a phone for?
My Apple Watch will ring if my phone's at home, I think.
Yeah. I just found out a scary thing.
Uh-oh. What's that?
Somebody in the chat room said, I see your blood pressure's
good.
Yes,
that comes up in my tweets every day. I get to see your blood pressure.
So, okay, so...
And in years past, it told me how much weight you'd lost, too.
I set this up. I forgot I even set this up.
Yeah, it's your scale or something. I don't know what...
I set up a Twitter account for my Why Things devices.
Uh-huh.
Which include a scale, and then includes I just readjusted my blood pressure monitor, and so apparently this morning it tweeted my blood pressure, which was terrifying.
Yep.
Yesterday too.
I get a daily update. I'm like, Leo's doing good.
So it seems odd that you could have this device, not use it for, it must be 6 years. And then when you turn it on, it immediately tweets.
Yeah, because it hadn't done it in a long time. I just noticed it within the last week or two.
No, and I noticed my scale somehow got woken up too. But it's not posting every day. I have to figure out.
So is your blood pressure coming from your watch?
No, I have a... so this is a company called Why Things. Nokia owned them briefly. Then they went back to being independent.
Okay.
They make scales and they make a blood pressure monitor, a cuff. Okay. And it goes to your phone. And the scale goes to the internet and apparently tweets.
It's so creepy.
I don't even know how it's tweeting. It's a little creepy. This was back when everybody thought Twitter was just some benign, cute little thing. I mean, literally, this was back in the, 2000s. 2009, it said. I created this account in 2009, 10 years ago.
Well, I've always thought it was pretty funny that I was getting these tweets that I knew way too much about you, but I didn't say anything because I thought you were doing it on purpose.
Well, I was back in 2009.
Oh.
You can unfollow it.
I guess I could.
What the strangest thing is there's more than 2,000 people want to know what I weigh. It's weird. Totally weird.
I thought it was just linked to your regular Twitter account.
Well, it's linked. No, yeah, no. This is not. I didn't know I was following your scale. It's Leo's _scale, LEOS_SCALE, and it's just it just shows you. I think this actually is a lesson for IoT devices, that they have a life of their own, and you might forget that you have them.
Yeah.
Somebody says what's even weirder is the scale is following 11 people. Yeah, I don't know about that. I have no idea why that is. Kim, have you been answering the phone? Please, let's change the subject.
Go to line 1, Sharice in Lancaster.
Thank you. I think I remember back in 2009 when I did this, I thought, this will keep me on the straight and narrow. Like, people will be watching, so I'll have to, be careful.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because you want the numbers to go down, not up.
Well, my blood pressure is pretty good, actually. Yeah. I don't know about the weight. I got to work on that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Hello, Sharice. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hi, this is Sharice.
Hey, Sharice. Welcome.
I've called because I wanted to know if you have something that I could help my elderly aunt who no longer can see very well, and I want to find some software that she can write her checks with.
Oh, interesting.
So I wanted to fill this. She wants to be able to type and see what she's typing. So it's got to have some kind of a screen, I think.
Yeah. She want a tablet or something. And does she has a printer? She has a printer.
She has a printer, and she has an iMac.
And she has an iMac. So you want check writing software. I think the only thing I can think of off the top of my head would be Intuit's Quicken, which would print out her checks for her. It's a whole check. It's a whole checking account system. Keeps track of her balance and stuff. Maybe that's too much. I'm
looking for something.
Yeah.
Simple.
So there are simpler things businesses often use. Like there's actually a program called Mac Personal Check Writer. Oh, look at that. Now, you're going to have to go out and buy or actually order from the bank special checks that are designed for printers. Usually what they'll have is 3 or 4 checks on a page. Just looks like a page of paper that you put in your printer. And they'll all be yeah. In fact, looks like they even sell checks. So this is halfpricesoft.com. Well, that's a little concerning. The software is $29. And then they'll sell you 300 checks, 3 per page for $18. And of course, you go, when you buy checks that way, they print them up with the bank's electronic ink and all that stuff so that it can be used. So yeah, there is check printing. Go ahead.
So that means it won't print from her printer?
Yeah, you put it in the printer just like a sheet of paper, and it knows where to print. Yeah, that's that. If you're writing, I don't know anybody writing checks. I might write 2 checks a year these days, but elderly aunts perhaps write more. Tell you what, I'm going to put a link to an article from just a couple of months ago, the 7 best check writers of 2019. We'll put that in the show notes. Wow, I didn't even know this category existed anymore, Sharice. Look at this. This is from the balancesmb.com, a small business, because there's mostly businesses that would use this. CheckSoft, for $50, is the #1 seller of check writing software. They have a home and business version. It works with Quicken, QuickBooks, and Microsoft Money, but you can also use it on your own. You can choose from over 1,000 background images, 100 templates. It comes with 175 free checks. And that's $50, and that's on Amazon. So this one, CheckSoft on Amazon, $50. Best for beginners, Easy Check Printing. They've been around since 2005. So that's another one you can look at. I'll tell you what, in the show notes, we'll put a link to this review of 7 of them.
Okay.
So, yes, I'm glad you asked, because such a thing does exist. And does she have an inkjet printer? What kind of printer does she have?
It's an Epson.
An Epson. And then the other thing I would actually say might be a better way to do this. Almost all banks now will pay your bills for you.
Oh, but she doesn't trust that.
Well, she has to trust the bank because the bank's the one doing the check. So any bank, you go to their website, she doesn't have to do the automatic pay your bills, but she can write an arbitrary check to anybody on the bank's website, and they will print it and mail it.
But that's what she's afraid to do, is write a check.
She wants to see it and sign it herself, right? Yeah.
Exactly. She's afraid to put things, pay things through the internet. She doesn't want to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. She can print out a check, sign it, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and mail it.
That's what she wants to do.
Yeah. Okay. We know how people my age are, cranky. So good.
My age too, believe me.
Yeah. So good. So she can put it in the printer, and that she'll have to buy special checks that go to the printer. You can't just take your checkbook and stick it in the printer. Obviously.
Right.
Yeah. Good.
Right. So we'll do that. Okay.
Hey,
Thank you so much. That's so helpful.
Thanks for calling. What a great question.
All right.
Take care, Cerise. Bye-bye. Gonna break the speed of sound. Time to talk cars with Sam Abuelsamid, the car guy, principal researcher at Navigant Research. I should mention we were talking to Cerise, whose elderly aunt wants to print checks, and we talked about check printing software. These days, I mean, like I said, I haven't written a check in years. It seems like maybe once a year I write a check because nobody wants checks anymore. I almost always do it through the bank with either electronic funds transfer, or you can actually, almost all banks will print and mail checks even for you. So, and maybe they don't print them. Maybe they just pretend they're printing them. I don't know. But
sometimes they actually do.
Sometimes they will print.
I've had cases where, if the place you're sending it to doesn't accept electronic.
It's
funds
run
transfer,
by an elderly aunt. Yeah. Do you ever write checks? I mean, when does one write checks?
Only maybe 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And it's getting less and less every year.
I have a checkbook. I carry it with me, and it's like that's really old school. I doubt, it's amazing what the world changes so fast and you don't even notice. First of all, we should say Happy Autonomous Vehicle Day. That was Friday. Sam made a video, right? Tell us about that.
I did. Our marketing team at Navigant asked me to take some questions that were solicited online and about autonomous vehicles and answer those. So I put together a video. It goes through a bit of an overview of the technology and answered a bunch of different questions related to that. What's going on there. Nice. So you can check that out on our YouTube channel for Navigant Research.
But today we're going to talk about something kind of infrastructure inside the car.
Yeah. And whether your vehicle's autonomous or not, there's a lot of or even whether it's an electric vehicle, there's a lot of electrons flung around your vehicle. In recent years, they've started to use this term electrical architecture. Back in the 80s, when I was first learning how to work on cars, it was just a wiring harness.
Right.
Wiring harnesses back then were pretty simple. You had a battery, a 12-volt battery, and you had some wires that were going to, basic things like your lights, your headlights, tail lights, the ignition, the ignition switch, the spark plugs, things like that.
Just like everything in your car, this was the kind of thing you could work on yourself, and now you can't even go close to it.
Right. Today, you look at, if you take the wiring harness out of some of the most advanced cars today, there can be anywhere from 1 to 1.5 miles of copper wire in your car.
Oh,
and talking to some of the people I work with in this industry, there's some cars that they're so complex. The wiring harness, it comes in a giant crate when it gets delivered to the assembly plant. It takes 9 people to take it out of the crate and load it into the car. And you've got hundreds of connectors on there for all these different sensors.
Holy cow.
Those fancy heated seats and massaging seats you like to have in your cars.
I love those. Yeah.
I mean, that's got to have wiring. It's got to have power going to it and signal lines. So it gets very complex. So manufacturers have been looking at how to try to simplify that.
Well, I know how we do it here in the studio. In radio stations, used to be the same thing. Every microphone has a wire that leads to a control panel. It leads to some. Now we do it all over the Ethernet. We are using a system from Telos called the Axia that takes everything like the voice coming from this microphone, turns it into bits, and puts it over a network, a computer-style network, an Ethernet network.
And we're actually starting to put Ethernet into cars. I mean, we've been using for the last 25, 30 years something called the CAN bus, the controller area network. Now, CAN bus was never designed for security, and it's not very fast.
Is it a data bus though, like a network? So it is a data bus.
It's an actual data bus. And so there's the CAN wiring, the CAN bus that allows sensors and the different computers in the car to talk to each other. But then you also just have your regular power wiring, and it's all built into the same harness. That's why they call it an architecture.
But it makes sense if you get rid of the point-to-point wiring, just like the phone system used to be. When you'd make a phone call, right? The operator, we've all seen the old movies, would take a plug plug it into another wire, which goes to the person you're talking to, and you literally have a point-to-point connection. But now that's all been replaced. First, it was switching equipment, but eventually it was all replaced with networking, and those packets are just routed as they are on the internet. Same thing in your car?
That's what's happening in the car. We're switching. GM recently announced their new digital vehicle architecture, and it's going to launch this fall on the new Cadillac CT5, and over the next couple of years, it's going to be rolled out to all their vehicles over the next few years.
That Cadillac is very sophisticated, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah,
an impressive
absolutely.
car.
As everything else, I mean, even cars like your Bolt, have a lot of wiring in them. I mean, you're talking the Bolt, the wiring harness weighs about between 150 and 200 pounds.
What?
Because there's copper in there. There's a lot of copper and all the insulation and everything. So that's a lot of weight.
So that's why replacing it with a network would also save weight, right? You only have one wire, and you route packets around the wires.
You simplify the wiring, and you get a lot more speed. So like GM's new architecture, it's going to support it's going to have 100 megabit per second Ethernet loops, 1 gigabit and 10 gigabit loops, all in the vehicle.
So imagine you get a new car. Now they get the seat. The seat has the heater, the massager, whatever is in that seat, but it also has an Ethernet port or something like it. And to put the seat in, you screw it down and you connect up that one jack just like your computer, and it can do all those things.
Yeah, it'll be something like that.
Yeah,
and this is part of why Tesla was the first that was able to do over-the-air updates for safety critical stuff, because they didn't have any legacy system that they were building on. They started from scratch, and so one of the problems with doing over-the-air updates, today on most cars you have 100 or more electronic control units, 100 or more little computers in the car, and they're all independently controlled. When they power up and down, can vary, and so that's part of the challenge of doing OTA on existing cars. As you shift to these new architectures like this one from GM, and everybody else is going down this path, they're going to be managed more centrally, and they're going to start to consolidate those computers. So have fewer computers that are running various functions in virtual machines in there, so that you can do those updates more safely and more reliably.
That does raise the specter of security, though, just as it does it with your computer network at home, because if you have one or two computers in the car and you hack that, you have access to all the systems.
Yes, and that's why the industry has formed what's known as the automotive ISAC. A lot of different industries have ISACs. Or information security and analysis centers, and what it does, it's an organization within an industry vertical that allows them to collaborate and share security data, threat data, and best practices on stuff that's non-competitive. So it doesn't violate antitrust laws. And there's in late 2015, they formed an automotive ISAC, and all the automakers are part of this except for Tesla, and all of the major suppliers are part of this. And GM was one of the first. GM also has their own bug bounty program, as do a few other automakers. And you remember Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek, who did the
hackers? Yeah.
You know where they work now?
Where?
At GM Cruise.
Good. I'm glad
So,
GM had the good sense to hire those guys. They were the ones who did on 60 Minutes, who showed how they could remotely stop a vehicle or step on the gas.
Yeah, they were the one. They were in Wired. There was a different set of security researchers that was on 60 Minutes.
Oh, okay. I thought that was the same guy.
It was after all that stuff happened that we started to see, the ISAC formed and all this other.
Someday
activity.
I'm going to ask you a question because it's going to take 6 minutes to answer, and we're out of time. But it seems like this is something the computer industry has known for decades. Why does it take the car industry so long to catch up with all this stuff? Don't answer. We're out of time. Sam Abuelsamid, principal researcher at Navigant Research. He's our car guy. Maybe next week, Sam, you can explain it to me. Always a pleasure, Sam. And don't forget that video. We'll put a link in our show notes so you can find out all about autonomous vehicles.
All right.
I mean, it seems like they're just, it's like somebody in Detroit said, oh, you mean we don't have to have a wire harness and all? I mean, we got rid of wire harnesses in the phone company 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a wire harness, but it's dramatically simplified and it's been reconfigured. As you reduce the number of individual computers and you start to virtualize a lot of this stuff in bigger computers.
Right.
Daimler did a deal with NVIDIA. They're developing a more central car computer, and Volvo's got one that they're bringing out in the next couple of years.
Interesting. So, but do you want to tell me why it takes so long?
Why it took so long to recognize the security issue?
No, not the security issue. Just to realize, we don't have to do these elaborate mechanical wiring.
Oh, well, that's because of the way, how you always hear car makers talk about, an all new model. Well, there's no such thing almost. There's almost never such a thing as an all-new model. Everything's got some carryover parts in it.
Right.
And so what's happened over the last 30 years is, we've had this ad hoc way of developing vehicles. So every time somebody comes up with a new feature, like, we added ABS and then traction control and stability control and adaptive cruise. Every time you add one of those features, it may come from a different vendor with its own electronic control unit. So now you got to add the wiring for that. And so it's because it's been put together piecemeal. Now
it's the same problem as Microsoft Windows.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly the same thing as Windows. So you've got to have all this backward compatibility, and it's just a mess.
Well, that's good, and that's why I understand why it's a shame Tesla doesn't want to be part of ISAC, but I understand why he's saying, "Well, I'm in a greenfield. I don't need to worry about legacy. I don't need to worry about any of that stuff. I can do it myself."
Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting. It's been an interesting journey for me. Almost 30 years in the industry, watching it evolve and seeing how much more complex it's gotten since I graduated in 1990.
So now that we have the Bolt, my Tesla goes back end of July. I will not be in the market for a car till a year from Christmas for 18 months. So just keep an eye out 18 months down the road on the best electric vehicle. I do kind of wish I had a little more autonomous stuff in the Bolt, I like that's to me for a safety thing on the Tesla, things like adaptive cruise control. But I'm sure that a lot of cars, I know the Cadillac had it, so I'm sure a lot of cars will.
Yeah, there'll be lots more stuff that has that kind of functionality coming in the next few months.
I'm in a good time frame. I think 18 months. I should have some good choices. Yeah. Thank you, Sam. It's always a pleasure. Boy, he sounds great. Thank you, John, for sending him that PR40. That makes a huge difference. Sounds like he's right here, and a great connection. Boy.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great. Have a great one, Sam.
All right, talk to you next week.
Take care. Bye-bye.
So your Tesla the Teslas have the old style wiring?
They don't have a CAN bus, no.
But they don't have something like networking, or do they?
Yeah, it's Linux.
Oh, so they have reduced a lot of wiring.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so the Tesla has
Oh yeah. In fact, the Model 3 even more so because they still had some old school, like the door latches in my Tesla still is a separate wire harness, separate thing. So it's old school. But as they advanced on the Model 3 now, it's all networked. That door, now, if it fails, I don't know. If the computer crashes, I don't know what you do. You have to have, for safety, I think you have to have some stuff. Like if occasionally there's the entertainment system will crash and there's a reset. There's like a 3-finger salute that you do, but you could still drive. It's just that you don't have any of the information. You don't have any, some of the control goes away, but it's still safe to drive. So obviously they must have two computers, and the driving computer is a little more robust. Yeah. Isn't Sam great? So big addition to the show, Sam Abuelsamid, the car guy. Next hour, normally Chris Marquardt, our photo guy, would join us. He's off on some jaunt going how he travels all around the world for his photo workshops. He won't be here, but I will reiterate the assignment next hour. And Johnny Jett, our travel guy, is going to join us. He took yesterday off for his birthday, but he will be here today in about 1 hour. So we get to talk the tech of travel. Meanwhile, I'll talk tech with you. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the phone number if you have a question, a comment, a suggestion. Tony's on the line from Bowie, Maryland. Hello, Tony.
Leo.
Welcome.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Leo, I have a question about speaker cables.
Speaker cables. Okay, fire away.
Yeah, I purchased a pair of high-end speaker cables from a company called Morrow Audio.
Okay. How expensive were those high-end cables?
Oh, $400 here.
Holy cow. Holy cow. Holy cow. And are they gold?
Yes, they're made of gold,
Okay.
and somebody's going to come by my house and install them for me. So,
Wow. Do you get that? Is that part of the $400, the installation?
Yes. No, that's
Nice.
not true.
Nice.
But here's my question. They offer a break-in service. Now, what do you think?
Cables don't need to be broken in, period. Speakers absolutely need to be broken in. You know that. If you're an audiophile, and you must be to spend $400 on
Yes.
stereo cables, you know that speakers' sound changes over time as the cones and the tweeters and all that stuff break in. They get a little more flexible. They change. And, in fact, they're designed to sound best after the break-in period. So many audiophiles will play, either white sound or music through their speakers for days before they really listen to them.
Well, that's their claim, that they need to...
Do they massage them in
Yes.
kitten oil? I don't know what they're doing.
Well, supposedly they run current through them. So
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this. There has never been any scientific evidence at all that expensive cables work better than cheap cables. And I've never heard of a break-in period. That is...
Well, if you go to their website, Morrow Audio.
Yeah, I know Morrow. Yeah.
And check it out and look and see about the service that they offer for those.
I wouldn't worry about the break-in. I certainly think that there is something to be said for a higher gauge and higher quality metals. Maybe
Right.
you're not gonna. I think you could say that. I also think that there are plenty of stereo stores that will show you the way towards the monster cables because they make a lot more profit on them.
Right.
There is. This is why it's really hard to measure. What's the ultimate goal? To sound good. The music sounds better, right?
Exactly.
But that's such a subjective thing that if you think it sounds better because you spent $400 on a cable and $2,000 on a sand tray for your turntable, et cetera, then it does sound better. If it sounds better to you, it sounds better. It's almost impossible to measure it with, or literally impossible to measure it with any meters. But many audiophiles will say, well, meters don't capture the emotional quality of music and all that stuff. So I'm reading a review of Morrow audio cables on highfidalityreview.com.
Right.
And by the way, he says the cables arrived broken in, a service Morrow Audio provides to the owners of any cable.
Right.
I'm just, if there's an electrical engineer listening who maybe can explain, maybe the electrons loosen up after after time. I find it a little hard to believe, but some people don't believe in angels either. If it makes you feel better and you can afford it, as long as you're not spending the rent money.
Right.
He actually says he likes them, and there is a money back guarantee. So if it doesn't sound better to you, it's not because you've then you don't have to lose any money. So it's an interesting question. I think this is true of music in general, that you can talk to the scientists and they'll say, well, there's no measurable difference. But when you're listening, if it sounds better to you, it is better.
Well, when I get them, I'll listen.
You let me know, yeah.
And I'll call you back.
The reviewer said, if I were building my system from scratch or starting a second one, I think I'd happily invest in some Morrows and then not give much further thought to cables. Isn't that how it should be?
Right.
Me, I always just buy the cheap stereo cable on a roll and cut it up and put it out the way. Morrow is a cable you can live with now and not sweat your decision further. Recommended. So there you go. There you go.
Okay. We'll see.
Enjoy. I don't think you need to massage them with mink oil or anything, but
Well, we'll see.
You're going to break them in just by using them, right?
Well, yeah, sure.
Do they do something special?
Yeah, I think what they do is they bring the musicians right into the
Hey, great music. I am going to applaud you because nowadays most people don't even know what good music sounds like. They listen to music off their phone on those crappy little white iPhone
right.
AirPods and they don't know what good music sounds like. So I applaud anybody who loves music enough to spend some time to get a good setup and to really listen and to enjoy it because it is worth it. There is nothing like it, and I feel like we have a whole generation of people who have never heard music played the way it should be. Of course, the best way is to go hear a live acoustic performance, then, as a musician would, because then you're in the middle of the music. And that's what Scott Wilkinson always says. He's spoiled. Here, he's our home theater guy. He's spoiled because as a musician, he sits in the orchestra. I'll never forget, he took me to the Lucas Ranch, where a symphony of more than 100 pieces was performing music for a new Sony game called Uncharted. And I got to sit in one of the last great sound stages in the world as this symphony orchestra played. And there's nothing like it. There's no reproduction can even come close to the sonic impressions of a great symphony, all the way from the oboes to the kettle drums performing right into your ears. But short of that, anything you want to do to make it sound as good as possible in your living room, I applaud it.
Well, we'll see. I'll let you know, Leo.
Hey, have fun.
Okay.
I'm glad you bought those. Let me know, will you?
Sure, I sure will.
Thank you, Tony. What an interesting question. There's, and I think it's important. Technology is really physics applied, right? It's science. It's applied science. So if you love technology, you like using technology, you enjoy the benefits of technology, thank science. But scientists aren't necessarily artists, and they may not necessarily fully appreciate the emotional tone and color of artistic musical performances. They may look at a meter and say, well, I can't, there's no difference. Sorry. You're throwing your money away. But sometimes I think, if it makes you feel good, you like music, John. John, our studio engineer, you love music. You probably wouldn't spend $400 on stereo cables, but I know what you would spend $400 on, following your favorite band around and listening in person or going to a symphony. When you go to a symphony, they're not amplified, are they? You're hearing the music. It's going right into your ear holes as the musicians made it. I think that's the way to enjoy music. Honestly, that's no reproduction, the real thing. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. Time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, smartwatches. We talked last hour about the fact that the U.S. Department of Justice is investigating Google, considering antitrust action against the number one search engine in the world, more dominant outside the U.S., interestingly, than it is in the U.S. Google only has a little more than 60% of the search market in the U.S. because there's Bing and, people use other solutions. In Europe, it's more like 80% of the market. I mention that because there's kind of an ongoing issue with Google right now. Now, if you're listening live, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, June 2nd, we're looking at an outage map at downloaddetector.com, and looks like much of the East Coast is now down for Google, as well as Seattle and San Francisco. Big red blotches, parts of Europe too. Not sure what's going on or why they're down, but a lot of people in our chat room are reporting that they can't get into their Gmail, they can't run YouTube. And it looks like the Google servers are struggling a little bit because LA was down and then came back up and is down again. Seattle has been going up and down. It's worse, though, on the eastern seaboard. New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. Pretty big red blops there. That's interesting. So that's just a little report. Somebody's saying, I don't know if it's accurate, my Nest is down too. Of course, Nest is run by Google. In fact, Nest recently converted from Nest's servers to Google's servers. Oops. But it ties into a conversation we were having last hour. I mentioned that when I came to work, I forgot my phones. I didn't bring my cell phone. And I was just asking, what's it feel like not to have a smartphone? Did you go as I did at first into like kind of a shock, like, oh no, how can I, oh no, then realize, not a big deal. What if, okay, so Google's down now. Oops, it looks like the down detector is also down. A lot of people hitting the outage map. Google is pretty much out on the West Coast. Big red blob of outages on the West Coast. What if that, most of us think, well, no big deal. It'll come back in a few minutes. What if it didn't? What if Google were gone for more than a day? What if it were gone for a week? What if it were gone for a month? What would we do? What would life be like? I know there's a lot of people under 25 who would be sitting in front of a blank screen with no YouTube to watch. What else is there to I can watch? But what would we do? I guess we could go to Bing for searches. Microsoft's got a search. DuckDuckGo. There's other search engines. It's an interesting question. It's not a power outage. It's a Google outage. Power outage would be a lot more of a catastrophe, wouldn't it? That's terrible. And I've been through a number of severe power outages, including the big one in the East Coast when I was a kid. Was that 1965? The Eastern Seaboard was out. That was a weird experience. Not just the Northeast blackout of 1965, not just my little town in Providence, but all over the Northeast. 30 million people without electricity for 13 hours. Whew, that's scary. But we didn't even have Google in 1965. We didn't have the internet. There was nothing to be scared of then. Who would have thought, let's fast forward 50 years. And now there's this thing called the internet. And it's not even down. Just the search engine's down, and everybody's going, what do I do? How can I set my thermostat? I don't even know what temperature is outside. Maybe we're a little too dependent on the Goog. Or maybe not. Maybe this will just prove we're not. Who knows? 8888 Ask Leo. My phones are working. I'd love to hear from you. If you're sitting in your living room in Montreal, you can't do anything because the Google is out, give me a ring. We'll talk. I can talk you down, man. David in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hi, David. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hey, Leo. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, my YouTube's down in Indy, so
yep.
I've been watching you, and it's just on.
Yep. Yeah, because we stream live on YouTube, and I guess all of YouTube is out.
I watch it now.
Yep.
But my problem is I've got a 2011 iMac. Everything works great on it. And I've tried to do boot camp before because I thought it'd be kind of nice to have Windows running on here, too. And it tells me I don't have an Intel processor.
What?
It is an Intel processor.
Of course you do. Of course you have an Intel What? Huh.
Yeah, when I try to run boot camp, it says, sorry, you must have an Intel processor.
What version of Mac OS are you using?
The latest one I could possibly get.
Okay. That may not be Mojave with those older Macs.
Let's see here. It says, it won't let me go to the latest and greatest.
You're on El Capitan. High Sierra.
10.
Yeah.
10.1, 3.6, that's it.
That would be my guess that's the problem. Boot camp is a very cool idea. It is essentially it's a couple of different things. One, it's a partitioner that squeezes the Mac portion of your hard drive to make room for Windows, and then it runs through a Windows install process. Before it does that, though, it will make a driver disk. Apple, drivers are the things that talk to the hardware. Windows uses drivers, so does Mac OS to talk to the hardware. And because Windows can run on a million different machines, Microsoft relies on the companies that make the hardware to make drivers. Apple makes drivers for Macintoshes. Without it, you'd have a hard time running Windows. So it makes a driver disk and then installs Windows. You need a real Windows installer. You have to actually buy Windows and then do it.
Yeah.
My guess, let's see. In Mac OS High Sierra and earlier, you need to use something called Boot Camp Assistant. You're using that, I'm sure, right?
Uh-huh. And I think I even tried it with the older software. I was thinking about, it's an old computer, just doing a total fresh install and seeing if it would let me do it.
The only thing that's weird is this: you're not on an Intel processor, because that's wrong.
I know. I thought, well, I did buy this off of Craigslist, and I thought, somebody trick the computer into thinking, but it's been all refreshed and redone. So
no, if you wouldn't be running High Sierra. I do notice though that on the Boot Camp site there is a distinction between High Sierra and the one that comes with High Sierra and the one that comes with later Mac OSs. So there might be something a little bit weird going on there. There is one thing that can happen with Boot Camp. If I mentioned that the first thing Boot Camp does is squeeze your Mac partition to make room for a Windows partition. I have seen this happen. If you have a lot of stuff on your drive or it's spread out across the drive, it can't do that. And so it'll fail because it says, I can't make enough room for the Windows partition. So your suggestion might be the way to do it, is to do a clean install of Mac OS, wipe the drive, do a clean install of Mac OS, and then immediately do Boot Camp.
Okay.
And that might,
fix it. Well, I can say I don't have an Intel processor when I know
I don't see any. I'm looking. Of course, Google isn't working, but I'm looking around. You know what? If Google doesn't work, the real problem is going to be me. Without Google, what can I do?
I know.
I don't think
YouTube, you're out of luck.
Yeah, I know. I don't think that error message is weird, but I don't see it anywhere else. So I don't know exactly what's going on with that. That perhaps is cause for
keep me on hold so I can listen to the rest of the show.
Yeah, I'll keep you on hold. A service we provide for people in areas where Google no longer works. And actually,
call Leo.
Do keep listening, because maybe we can come up with another solution for that. I'm not sure why Boot Camp's not working, but I would guess it's because it's an older machine. And it may be, I recommend this anyway. If you get a machine used, from Craigslist especially, from a source you don't really know, it is always a good idea to wipe the machine and reinstall. The nice thing on Macintoshes is you don't have to go out and buy anything to do that. There's a complete, you can even install from the network. There's a complete recovery partition on the Mac. But actually what I would do is I would start all over. I would just wipe that drive, start all over. You don't want it. You inherited whatever you inherited from this previous owner. You don't want that. So wipe it, start all over, then do Boot Camp, and I bet you everything will work just fine. 8888 Ask Leo, the phone number. We'll keep an eye on this Google outage. This is interesting. I don't know. There's lots of reasons things like that can happen, but spread out as it is over much of the eastern United States and then a little bit of the West, I wonder. Could this be malware? Now it's hitting LA pretty hard. It's Texas too. It's Dallas. Looks like big metros are reporting it more. San Francisco. Worse in Vancouver. This is odd. Very odd. Well, there's a lot of reasons it could go up and down. They could be. It could be a lot of things. Severe thunderstorms. That could be. Oh, in Central West Virginia, if there are thunderstorms in Nova, where many Google servers and Apple servers too are stored, that could be it. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888. Ask Leo. Still watching this Google outage. Doesn't seem to be getting any better. So if you're noticing that you're having trouble with Google services like Gmail and YouTube, you're not alone. You're not alone. Seems to be going on in a lot of areas. Very interesting. On we go with the show to line 4 and Catherine in Ontario, California. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Leo. Thanks for answering my question today.
Well, thanks for calling.
So there's a debate arising in my house again. About 6 years ago, my husband wanted to get rid of our landline, but I had 2 children who did not have cell phones, and I was concerned if they ever need to make a call, for an emergency. And now they're older, they have cell phones, and my husband's saying, why are we paying for a landline? My question to you is, any new technology, any recommendations on whether or not in terms of safety, needing to call 911, are just having cell phones fine, or is it still good to have a landline in terms of dialing 911?
It's a great question. And most people, I'm looking at my 2 kids, 27 and 24, they don't have landlines. Most people, young people these days, don't bother setting up landlines. But you raise the most important issue, which is 911. There are actually 2 issues with landlines, and 911 is probably the most important. With a landline, 911 knows your location. The minute you make the call, you don't have to say anything, you don't have to do anything, it just knows. When cell phones became commonplace, the FCC instituted something called E911 and made sure that all cell phone providers support E911, enhanced 911. And who's your cell phone carrier?
I believe it's Frontier now.
Okay. That's your phone company.
Phone carrier, Verizon.
Yeah,
Verizon.
So Verizon supports E911. What will happen when you call 911 on a Verizon cell phone is you get a regional center because they don't know where you are exactly.
Right.
Because you're mobile. Now, the cell phone does know where you are, and this is important, is more and more regional centers, this is becoming very widespread, and I think there's a mandate to do this pretty soon, have the ability to query the cell phone and get your exact GPS location. So Verizon says when calls to 911 happen, they go to a regional 911 area. In some cases, that could be for your entire state. You're in California. It's going to be much more local for you. It'll probably be in your county, if not in your town directly. And then they'll dispatch the call maybe to your local fire department or police department. They can dispatch it to something more local to you. So there is a little time for handoff. They do now know where you are. In most cases, and I'm almost certain in Ontario they would have this capability to say, well, to query the cell phone, what's your GPS? That would tell them within a few meters where your kid is, so they could respond. Mm-hmm. They could respond quickly. So there's that the E911 takes a little bit of extra time to go from the public safety answering point. According to I'm looking at Verizon right now, they say, our enhanced 911 service works only where public safety answering points have upgraded their equipment and systems to be able to read and use the enhanced 911 location data. That's what I'm talking about. So you could actually ask in your area, but I would bet in Ontario that's going to work. GPS is going to work. So in that case, you may even be better off because they know exactly where your kid is. The other thing, and I don't think in your frontier area this is going to matter as much anymore. In the old days, when it was Ma Bell, a landline that was connected directly to the wall, not plugged into the power, but just connected only to the wall, was getting power from the central office. So if there was a blackout, your landline would still work. And that was another reason we recommended for a long time. I kind of still do if you can get that kind of service, that you have a landline in your house, even just a cheap, lowest cost landline that you can't even make outbound calls to, because then a 911 call will work even if the power's out. But nowadays, and I bet you if you have Frontier, I bet they're using a VoIP service, which is probably battery backed up. I mean, there's all sorts of issues. It's not the same as it used to be. So you can ask Frontier, what's the situation here? My guess is your landline service probably is not in any major way better than the cell service. And remember, cell service works when the power goes out too, as long as the power doesn't go out to the cell. Not the phone, but the tower that you're connected to. And even then, it may route to another tower that still has power. So in some ways, cell service often lasts longer. I remember, I hate to bring it up, but during 911, during 9/11, people were able to make cell phone calls even when the building was was falling down. So,
Wow.
yeah. So in some ways, a cell phone might be preferable. Certainly, the best solution would be have both.
Right.
But I think you're probably not. It's probably not a severe cause for concern if you don't have a landline. I don't worry about my kids not having a landline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that gives me a lot of information. Thank you so much.
More than you asked for, probably. but now you have it. I'm very reluctant to say, "Oh no, you don't need a landline," because I don't want anybody to suffer because they didn't have a landline and then they couldn't get the 911 service they needed, or the power was out and they couldn't get help. So I told my mom, for instance, to get a landline. But then here's the problem: my mom said, "Oh, I got my landline from the cable company." Oh, Mom, that's not a landline. And I think if you get it from Frontier, it may not be a landline either. What they've given you is an internet phone service. Sometimes they put a battery in your house to back it up if the power goes out. But they're even more fragile than a cell phone, because an internet phone service, if the power goes out or the internet goes out, your phone service goes out. So that is not an emergency phone by any means. And in many cases, those kinds of internet phone services don't even support true 911. They support E911. The FCC does require E911 now for all cell carriers, and that's really good news. That means you do have better protection. And if you're worried, your kids, there are other services you can put on that phone to call in an emergency, to call you or send text to you in an emergency. Those are really cool too. Those are very valuable. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. He's been everywhere. He's our travel guy. Johnny Cash Jet. JJ, nice to see you. Happy birthday, Johnny Jet. He didn't come on the show yesterday because he was celebrating on the beach with 40 close friends, having a great time on your birthday. Congratulations. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. It was a great birthday.
You're going to have another birthday soon, aren't you?
I hope so.
Little Sally Jet. Do you know
Yes.
Do you know, boy or girl? Do you know that?
We do know.
But you're not telling.
Not really.
No,
Some
you shouldn't.
people.
You shouldn't. Shouldn't say a word. You know why?
So.
You know why? We had a name we really liked for our firstborn. And I told the name, I won't say the name, but I told the name to my mom, and she said, "Oh, that reminds me of a clown." And so we couldn't use it. So don't tell anybody. Just stick with the name.
No, we're not telling people names.
People are bad. So we should mention once again, Google does seem to be down over much of the East Coast and is starting to spread to the West Coast, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles. Don't know what's going on. No word from Google yet. It does not seem to be a global internet outage, just a Google outage. So Gmail and YouTube and Google services like that. Johnny, we don't need Google. We can travel.
So will that affect, by the way, YouTube TV?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Because we're about to get it.
Oh, you're gonna love YouTube TV. I got it. I got it when it first came out, $35 a month, and last month they said we're gonna raise it to $50, and we're adding channels I didn't really care about, so I canceled because I don't. That's a big jump from 35 to 50.
They should have grandfathered you in.
Well, whatever. I just said, I don't use it enough to make it worth it. I love it though. It's of the over-the-top services.
Okay.
It gives you locals in many markets, including yours and mine, and I just thought this was great.
Well, I would have gotten it a long time ago, but my wife is like, no.
We're going to have to get it when the NFL comes back. My wife will insist, I'm afraid.
All right. Do you want to talk about the 737 MAX at all?
Yeah, sure. So I flew Southwest on Wednesday, both flights to Vegas and back. Not only on time, but I got the Super Saver $39 fare.
How far in advance did you buy that?
Not that far, a few weeks.
Okay.
The web fare. By the way, when you go to, especially Southwest seems to be the worst, but other airlines do this too. When you go onto their website, they offer 4 or 5 different prices for the same seat. What's going on there? And should you buy the cheapest?
With Southwest, they offer the ones that are fully flexible for business travelers.
I see.
But the thing and also you can board in the A zone,
Yeah, I always pay a little more because I don't want to be in the D zone.
Right, but you really don't need it with Southwest because they have such incredible cancellation fees. They don't charge you a $200 cancellation fee like American, United, and Delta do.
I have to say, makes me want to move to Vegas just so I could fly there cheaply.
But with Southwest, you want to buy those tickets early, and also Southwest gives you 2 free check bags, which
I know. I
if
love
you're
that.
checking 2 bags on other airlines, that will cost you at least $70 each way.
Yep. So they have a huge 737 MAX fleet. I don't know how many, but quite a few.
30-something.
Yeah. Is that hurting them?
Definitely. It's definitely hurting them because they had to cancel some flights. But, you were asking me about if it's going to raise ticket prices. In some markets it might, but if you're savvy with the way you travel and buy your tickets, if you're not flying during peak, which is usually Fridays, Thursdays, nights when business travelers are flying, and everyone wants to return on a Sunday so they can get back to work on Monday. And also Monday's a busy day. So if you fly on a Tuesday or Wednesday, you can usually find those really good deals. And when you flew to Vegas, what did you fly? Tuesday, Wednesday?
Wednesday, Friday.
Okay. And both ways was $39?
I can't remember. I didn't buy it. Lisa told me that was it.
Because Friday, I would think would be more expensive.
Go up a little bit. Yeah, maybe it did. All I know is we paid more for parking than we did for the airfare.
Well, and you're a savvy traveler because you took off on a Wednesday and you
yeah, I'm a savvy traveler because I work weekends, Johnny.
I know. And that's
what makes me savvy. I thought though, didn't they used to be that if you flew over a Saturday you got a better deal because business travelers would never fly over?
That used to be the rules like 15,
not anymore?
20 years ago.
Oh,
and then the airlines started allowing one-way fares. I think when the low-fare carriers started coming in, like JetBlue really started coming into the market. I'm not exactly sure on this, but that's when they eliminated it. But in some markets, you still need a Saturday night stay, especially if you're going to Europe. So always price it out. Like sometimes a round-trip ticket will be cheaper than a one-way ticket. So even if you only need a one-way, you buy a round trip, and including within Europe. So always price out different fares like that. So
that's where computer and sites like Expedia and so forth will really help you out because, I use TripIt. They will warn me if there's a lower price, if the price has dropped and I can go rebook and stuff. The technology can really help you get the best price here.
For sure. Fare alerts. I'm a big fan of fare alerts. Google, Yapta, Hipmunk.
So anytime you buy a ticket, you'll put a fare alert on it.
I do. I usually do it on Google, and and every day I get updated saying, this fare that I'm looking at is either going up or down. I've been looking at going to Bangkok, and it ranges widely. So sometimes one day it's 6,000, and the next day it's 3,000. I'm looking for business class to Europe on American, so I can get my miles and retain my elite status for next year. It's a game, but so you just keep waiting. Just don't buy right away. Always look and see what the fares are doing and then decide. But you don't want to wait till the last minute because that's usually when they'll get you, but not always. Because I actually looked at this fare to go to Bangkok and they said I could leave this Thursday for $2,800.
Wow.
So always price out different fares and different ways. And also, don't be loyal to one airline unless you fly a lot.
Right. Because those points don't matter as much as they used to.
They don't. They're not as lucrative as they used to be, but they still are if you're savvy with the way you use them. But one tip, by the way, which I don't know if I ever mentioned, on how to get cheap fares to Europe, sometimes it's better to buy 2 separate tickets. So one year I was going to Sardinia, Italy, and a coach fare ticket from New York or LA was $3,000. But if I bought a one-way ticket to London, it was $400, and then if I jumped on a low-fare carrier from London to Sardinia, it was only $100. So the trick is with that, you'd have to spend the night in London because you don't want to take a chance of doing a connection because a lot of times it's out of different airports, especially these low-fare carriers. And you want to make sure that you're not packing a lot of bags because the low-fare carriers will get you on heavy bags and things like that. But that's a great way to save a lot of money. So I did it. I basically had a free night or two in London, and I still saved a couple $1,000s. So that's one great one great tip on saving some airfare.
It's a tip trip. It's trip tip.
But if your flight's delayed or canceled by one airline, the other airline's not going to honor it. That's why you got to leave at least a day in advance.
Right.
So don't mess around with that.
So Southwest is saying, they had a quarterly report, and they said in their analyst call, they've been told that the 737 Maxes would come back sometime in the next couple of months. They have said they've changed their flight schedule to accommodate the loss of the Max through August 5th. But if they have 5% of their aircraft are 737 Maxes.
But they've been pushing it by a month every time, so it could be pushed again.
Yeah.
Obviously, Boeing and the airlines want to get this aircraft back in the skies, but I think a lot of the public is going to be wary of it.
Yeah, they may want to get it back in the skies, but we want to keep it in the sky.
Yeah, I mean, I flew it 2 weeks before they grounded it, and it still pisses me off that they
shouldn't have been flying.
Boeing had this.
I think we now know that they should not have been flying.
They should not have been flying. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, Boeing took a huge hit, including with me.
Rightly so. Yeah.
Yep.
Rightly so.
Do we have time for an app, or are we out of time?
I think we're out of time, but I'll tell you what, people should go to johnnyjet.com. That's Johnny's website, because there's all sorts of great information on technology. He's actually has his own kind of fair newsletter. It's free to subscribe to. He's on Twitter at JohnnyJet. He's on Instagram at JohnnyJet. Are you traveling this week?
I am traveling this week.
You going to Bangkok?
No, not that. You never know. If the price really drops, I might go. But
well, have a good trip. Good luck to Natalie. I know she's kind of grounded for the next few months, but all the best to both of you, and to actually all three of you, soon to be four. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, and happy birthday. So the Google Compute Engine is having a multi-region issue.
When it comes to IT, it
doesn't seem like that should be causing all these problems, but I guess it is. Maybe this is just the tip of the iceberg. Maybe that's the first thing reported, but they're having other issues. Because I checked this a while ago, and this was a green check. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, 8888. Ask Leo. Still watching those Google outages. They're not spreading. They're not getting worse, but they're not getting any better. People watching YouTube or trying to get their Gmail in the Northeast, particularly New York area, are still suffering outages. Some scattered outages on the West Coast as well, in San Francisco and Los Angeles. And right smack dab in the middle of the country in Wichita. What do these things have in common? I don't know. I'm not sure. Much of southern Canada is also or was affected. Montreal, a little less so. Toronto, Boston, somewhat. Looks like New York is the worst affected right now. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the phone number. 888-827-5536. No, we don't know why, but these things happen. It's called the internet. Remember the days when people talked about the internet, said it was designed to withstand a nuclear attack. Maybe so, but it doesn't do so well if the BGP routers get jammed or something. I don't know. It's not quite so robust. Let's go to the Virgin Islands. Let's all go right now. Dan's there. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Leo.
Welcome to the show.
Yes, long-time follower since your days on screeners or the screensavers TV.
Tech TV, yeah. Are you in the U.S. Virgin Islands?
Yes.
Nice. It's beautiful there. I spent last Christmas in the British and BVI, and I just really love that area.
Yeah, we're all still looking for your DJI Phantom.
You know it. Yes. It is there somewhere.
One of the divers will find it.
I know it'll come up somewhere. What can I do for you, Dan?
A while back, you were a big proponent of the Lighthouse security camera, and I agree. It's got to be one of the best ones that was on the market. I think Gizmodo also agreed with you.
Yeah, it was also the most expensive, and that's why they went out of business.
Yeah, nothing can really compare. Even the professional stuff doesn't have the same AI for what you were paying. I mean, even wired systems with all the bells and whistles. Who has the time to review 24 hours of video when the highlights are already there for you, on the highlight reel. Basically.
It really is a sad story. The Lighthouse was created by people who had a lot of experience with. One of the guys came from one of the winners of the ARPA Grand Challenge. He'd built autonomous vehicles. They had a lot of AI expertise, and the reason they failed is it was so expensive. It was $300 plus service. But the reason it was so expensive is that it wasn't just a camera in there. In fact, I have one. It's now in my technology museum, which is filled with great technologies that failed. It's right behind me over my shoulder. The reason it was so expensive, they built in a time-of-flight LiDAR sensor in addition to a camera. that gave it a 3D image of the room. And it was because of that, and their expertise in kind of AI, that they were able to do things. You could ask that camera, hey, tell me if you see my dog, or if the kids come home and the dog's not with them, or tell me when my wife gets home. Or I mean, it was really sophisticated, and it is a shame. And I don't know of anything like it. The Nest IQ indoor cameras promised to do something similar. My experience with them was that they weren't as smart.
And they're currently down today too.
Yeah, they're down.
Yeah, website.
Yeah, they're down. So yeah, it's a sad fact of technology that the best technology doesn't always win.
So I'm hoping one of your other listeners hears about this camera and maybe tries to buy the patent or pick up where they left off, because it truly was the best commercial, residential, consumer, whatever camera.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think $300 for an in-home security camera is too much. That just didn't. Yep. It was a lot. You can get a Wise Cam for $20 that will do some of the same things. Actually, I would look at the Wise Cam because it's so inexpensive, and it does have some smarts, but nothing like the Lighthouse. I was very sad when it failed. They were an advertiser, and I was very happy to do their ads because I was really sold. I had a chance to talk to the executive team and understand what they were doing, and I thought this thing is brilliant. We were doing ads for them before they were even available to the public. I was very, very excited about it. So, but this happens. I've been around long enough to see it happen time and time again. There was a little operating system some people still remember called BOS. That was easily the best operating system I'd ever used, and could have, came this close to being bought by Apple instead of the next operating system, which they now use for Mac OS. When that failed, they went out of business, and that, I think, we sure could use it today, but it's gone. And so sometimes that happens. Somebody might acquire their assets and take it over. I think it would have happened by now, but maybe not. Maybe somebody will do that, and I know those guys will go on to create great new things.
Well, I'm hoping some other manufacturers might send you some cameras that are equally good. Or,
when they do, I will tell you.
You can report on it.
Hey, I'm glad you listened, Dan. For all these years, I really appreciate your support. Thank you. And where in the Virgin Islands are you?
St. Thomas, and I also work in St. Croix.
Nice. What do you do? Diving? Are you a captain?
No, I'm IT.
IT?
For a government agency.
And you just thought, it might be nice to live down here.
Yeah. No, it worked out well. Transfer from Boston to the Virgin Islands, huge difference.
All right, you think you'll stay, or is it getting a little slow for you?
I've been here since '95.
Oh, I guess not. Nice. Yeah, you must have a good tan by now. Well, it's great. Yeah. It's great to talk to you, Dan. Living the life in the Virgin Islands. Have a great one.
You too.
Take care.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. I will. Well, I'll try. I'll do my best. I'm glad you think it's good work. Whatever it is I'm doing, I'll keep doing. Yeah, the Lighthouse camera, I kind of feel bad about that one. Can you think of other... they shut down at the end of the year last year. Light.house. I don't know where the principles ended up, where the technology ended up. If anybody, it seems like Google should have acquired the AI. Can you think of other, great technologies that just didn't survive? I could think of a lot of them. My favorite programming language, for instance, which is the second oldest programming language still in use, Lisp, is not widely loved anymore. These things happen. One of our chatters is asking which cameras I use. I have right behind me, if you look carefully, you could probably see a Nest IQ cam. My favorite, because of the price, are these Wise cams, WYZE, the pan cam, which is $30, and the fixed cam, which is $20. And now Wise offers a very inexpensive attachment for it that adds to its capabilities. Gives you can have sensors and stuff. It's really an interesting product. And the company, which is out of Seattle, former Amazon folks, it has an interesting model. They want to make these so inexpensive that they just sign up a lot of people There's no subscription fee. That was another problem with Lighthouse, and it's a problem with Nest, is you end up paying monthly fees. They can be substantial if you have more than one camera. Wise doesn't charge fees at all. It doesn't have quite the sophisticated ability to monitor, but you can put an SD card in it and record, or you can use your phone and check in on the camera at any time. So I guess that's the ones I would probably recommend, given the price, right? It's hard to beat that price. Our show is going to continue another hour to come, but I want to remind you, if you're driving around enjoying this beautiful day and you hear something and you go, oh, I got to write that down. No, stop. You don't have to. All you have to remember is the website, techguylabs.com. We'll put it all up there, and there's no charge to use it. techguylabs.com. Well, hey, how are you today? Hour number 3 of the Tech Guy Show. Leo Laporte here. This is the time of the week you and I get to sit down and talk about geeky stuff. Computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, that kind of stuff. 8888 Ask Leo, that's my number if you want to call and chew the fat. 888-827-5536. Toll free from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. Outside that area, use Skype. You can still call in. Looks like the Goog is still suffering. Outages all over most of the East Coast, centered in kind of New England and New York, but also the Eastern Seaboard, Richmond, Washington, Baltimore. It makes you wonder if it has something to do with their servers in Northern Virginia. But then I see also San Francisco and Los Angeles suffering a little bit. Pretty much urban areas across the country are reporting in, but that's where the population centers are. So maybe it's the whole U.S. for all we know. Google will eventually tell us what's been going on. It seems to be impacting YouTube. It also seems to be impacting Gmail. So if you can't sign into your Gmail, take the day off. Enjoy. Somebody pointed to an article that came out a couple of months ago that predicts these internet outages, something called 768K Day. Expected right around now, actually. It's a reminder of 512K Day, when AT&T, British Telecom, Comcast, Sprint, and Verizon all went down. It is a little bit of an obscure number. By the way, that was in 2014. It has to do with routers. Now, we all have routers in our home that take the internet traffic coming in from our internet service provider and distribute it to all of our devices throughout the house. That's what a router does. There's big routers, too. Big routers that route internet traffic. And the instructions the routers use come from something called BGP, Border Gateway Protocol. It's a routing table. It says, here's where this goes, here's where this goes. The BGP table on some older routers runs out of space at 768,000 addresses. 768,000 addresses. Well, guess what? We're currently at 773,000 addresses and going up all the time. Let me see. There's a tweet account that's keeping track of this on Twitter. BGP4 table says 778,915 IPv4 proxies. That's more than these older routers can handle. I don't know if that's related to why Google's going down. And you may say, wait a minute, you're telling me the internet's relying on hardware and it's past the hardware's capacity? And by the way, 768,000 tables, these IP4 addresses aren't that big. They're, what are they? They're 4 byte addresses. You're telling me that you can't give an extra gigabyte of storage to these guys? I don't know. But 768K Day may be happening, and maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. Maybe that's what's going on with Google. The internet gurus say that they would be surprised if there weren't some interruption or outages that happen as a result of this. But Google's got to be using more modern routers, I would hope. Anyway, we're watching this. I don't know. Google someday will tell us what happened. I'm sure they'll underplay it. And, it's a weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Who needs Google today? It's just funny because I began the show talking about life without Google. Little did I know it would happen that quickly. Wow. Website, techguylabs.com. That's where we put everything from the show, all the links, all the information. I'll put a link to the website that I'm using to monitor Google, by the way. It's called downdetector.com. Downdetector.com. And you can watch for yourself as the Goog falls off the map. Maybe all the engineers went home to watch the basketball game. I don't know. Tom on the line from Las Vegas. Hello, Tom. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hi, Leo. Thank you so much for taking my call. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. What can I do for you?
Well, I've got a bit of a conundrum here because I'm still a little shy about the Internet.
Mm-hmm.
There's a program that I have access to establish or start up a trust and a will.
Yeah.
Susie Orman, are you familiar with her?
Oh, I love Susie. Yes.
Yeah, very bright young lady.
She's
love
great.
her.
Yep, and really good with money. I didn't know that she offered those kinds of resources.
She and Time Life have teamed up to put together a program, but it's all done on the Internet.
Oh, that's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I'm looking at her site, Wills and Trusts. Now, I'll tell you how you can find out if it's safe. Of course, anytime you're using a site like this, there is a trust issue. You should always consider, do I trust this site to store my information? Because that's concern number one. They're going to have information, especially if it's wills, trusts, taxes. They're going to have information that includes Social Security numbers, bank accounts, lots of important stuff. And if you don't think that site's going to do a good job of protecting that information, you shouldn't put it there. So you have to ask yourself, do I trust Time Life? Do I trust Susie Orman? So that's question number one. Then the second question to ask is the connection to this site secure? Because, okay, I trust Susie. She's not going to do anything bad with my information. One of the things hard for us to judge is what her security practices are. That's a little bit more difficult. You can read the privacy policies. You can try to look into who's running the site for her, stuff like that, and maybe try to judge whether they're trustworthy or not. She's such a big name. I would guess that she's probably got a good company running this for her. But, man, I mean, we've seen breaches at Target. We've seen breaches at Marriott. We've seen every big company in America has had breaches of some kind or another. And in those breaches, private information of people like you and me is leaked out to bad guys. So sometimes that's a real, legitimate cause for concern and hard to determine how safe it is. The second issue is, how safe is my data getting to that site? And that's an easy one to verify because on your browser, there'll be a padlock up by the name susieorman.com. And you click that padlock and you'll get information about the connection. In my case, I'm looking at it, says the connection is secure. That's good. You want to see it. Then below that, you'll see a certificate. The certificate is valid. And you see who has issued that certificate. Interestingly, the certificate for Susie Orman's site is issued by Amazon. She's running through Amazon. Now, I trust Amazon. Their security's been good. I haven't ever heard of an Amazon breach. So, in fact, you're learning two things here. The data is probably being secured by Amazon. That doesn't guarantee security, but that's a good start. And the data going to the website is also secured, so somebody can't snoop on what you're doing. But I don't blame you about your concern. Did they send you off? It looks like on her resources page, they send you off to other sites.
They do. They can, and yes. But initially, they'll mail out a password or a key log, and so that's how you get into the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. If they send you another site, you have to go through the same exact process with that site. But it's really hard for any individual, even a security professional, to know if the company you're going to store that information with ultimately is reliable. And by the way, that's true of your bank. That's true of your insurance company. That's true of every company you do business with. If they're on the internet, there's a high duty to protect you, and many big companies fail to do it. Look at Equifax, Equifax, a credit reporting agency that had information on almost every American allowed tens of millions of records to be stolen. And, if you can't trust them, they've got all the data. I don't know who you can trust. So you're right to worry. I guess the other side of that is, well, they already have all that information probably anyway. So I do stuff on the web all the time. And I think the best thing to do is to go through that basic check. Do I trust this person? Is this site secure? And then keep an eye on your credit reports and, other stuff to make sure that nobody's misusing your information. I think probably you're safer. Think of it this way. You give your credit card number to a waiter at the restaurant, and he goes off and disappears for a couple of minutes and comes back. You're trusting that person you've never met before with your credit card information. We do it every day. So when people say, I'm worried about the internet, well, we do this every day. That's where we live these days.
Well, part of my thinking, too, is all this information is consolidated, and there's a lot of information, a lot of detail in one location.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right to be concerned. Maybe it'd be better to go to an attorney, do it there, and at least then the attorney probably isn't storing it online. And then if he screws up, you have somebody to hold liable.
Yeah, good point. Actually, I'd like to see it all on a zip drive or a CD or something like that,
Right.
so it's all contained within my own system.
The thing I often tell people is your system is also highly insecure because nowadays, in fact, I would say in most cases, a big professional online company is going to be more secure than you are at home because people get bit by malware all the time, and that's often what malware's after. Right? So, yeah, you think, I'm going to keep it at home. It's safe. Well, it's safe from somebody, with a baseball bat, but it's not safe from internet malware, which is all over the place. Have you ever been bit by malware?
I have not.
Good. It's safe.
It's been lucky.
You've been lucky. That's the real truth of it, yeah. Good question. I thank you for calling. I wish I could give you a better answer. I trust Susie Orman, of course. I trust Time Life, of course. On the surface, everything looks pretty good. But it's not these days. It's not an unreasonable thing to think about, particularly since we hear every week about another big breach. The most recent, First American Title Company. You saw that? Maybe you didn't. It doesn't even make the news. It no longer merits news. That's what's really sad. If you ever bought a home, you know that during the escrow process, you hire a title company to provide title insurance and sometimes an escrow. First American, which is the largest title company, exposed 885 million documents and has been doing so since the early 2000s, discovered by security expert Brian Krebs, reported to First American. Holy cow, they shut it down, but Brian Krebs said that it's been going on since 2003. You could go to First American and get anybody's title report and with all the information, your entire home loan application. And that's been going on since 2003. 885 million records. Holy cow, I'm in there. I bet you are too. If you ever bought a house, you're almost certainly in there. Our show today brought to you by WordPress. Do you have a blog? Do you have a website? If you're a business and you don't have a website, you want to go to WordPress.com right now. But if you're an individual and you don't have a website, same thing, and I'll tell you why. What do you get when you search for your name on the internet? What you want to get is not somebody else's posts about you or your Twitter or Facebook. What you want to get is a website that shows you at your best, right? You got to have a website. Sure, you can have a Facebook page. Sure, you can have a Twitter stream. But they should link back to your home on the internet, where it reflects the best you have to offer. And I tell teenagers this all the time. When I go to a business and they don't have a website, I have to scratch my head. Do you want to stay in business? Even if I'm hiring, a handyman, I will go and look at their website. WordPress.com makes it easy. Powerful site building tools, thousands of themes. They do the hosting. They do the security patches. They're the best in the business. And you get great support 24/7 from actual WordPress experts, enthusiasts, people who love WordPress, who know it. WordPress.com. 33% of the internet runs on WordPress. When I say that, I know that sounds incredible, but it's true. 1/3 of the entire internet runs on WordPress.com. WordPress, and WordPress.com is the best place to do that. WordPress.com was started so anyone can publish their ideas. It's free to start. There's room to grow. You can continue to use the free site. You could go do e-commerce. I have the business plan, which I love. Lots of plugins, lots of features. No 2-week trials, no hidden fees, and you own your content forever. WordPress.com. Go to WordPress.com/TechGuy. You'll get 15% off any new plan purchase. You got to have a website. You got to have a website. They'll even help you set up the domain name and everything. WordPress.com/TechGuy. 15% off your new website right now. Make it so. My WordPress.com website is leolaporte.com. And that's where I put my best stuff. Where are you putting your best stuff? WordPress.com/TechGuy. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the phone number. Love to talk to you about tech. It's my passion, my enthusiasm, my joy, my love. It's what I do every single day, even when I'm not on the air. In fact, Monday through Friday, I still do podcasts. I can't get away from it. If you like the Tech Guy show, you can hear a lot more geeky, speaky, lemon squeezy stuff at twit.tv. That's the website for my podcast network. TWIT. It stands for This Week in Tech. twit.tv. And the Tech Guy show's there as well, but lots of other stuff at the website. John in Santa Barbara, Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. Hi, John. I pushed the right button? I did. John, are you there?
Hello?
Hey, John, welcome to the show.
Oh, well, hi. I was just off my phone. I have a real low-tech question.
Okay.
It's so low-tech, I Googled it, and they don't even know. And anyway, I got a Obama phone years and years ago, and the service is Air Voice Wireless. So it was a little flip phone.
Yep.
And so I called them up, and I said, I hate this thing. And they said any Moto G would work. Just put the SIM card in.
Excellent.
So I did.
Good.
And it worked. Moto G worked great.
Yay.
And then I got an opportunity to get a Samsung S5. So I put the SIM card in that. Bingo. Works great.
Nice.
But now I want to get a new, because of listening to you, I want to get a new Moto phone. And so I went online to buy a new Moto phone and unlocked. And under unlocked, I thought unlocked meant unlocked. Anyway, unlocked, it says one category of unlocked uses Verizon system and some other major networks, and the other unlocked system uses GSM.
Right.
And then the Moto G says uses GSM. Well, this Air Voice Wireless, I tried to find out if Air Voice Wireless is a GSM, but I know that they use Verizon towers, Air Voice Wireless.
So there's CDMA then?
I'm sorry?
That means there's CDMA.
Oh,
so let me explain all of this. So the locked thing, the locked thing means there are a couple of things locked can mean, but usually in this context it means carrier locked. Sometimes when you when you set up an account with Verizon or AT&T or Sprint or T-Mobile, they'll carrier lock the phone. That means you can't take it to another carrier. You put in their SIM card, it won't work because it's carrier locked. Most carriers are required by the FCC to unlock after various criteria are met, chiefly that you've paid off the phone and you're in good standing with the company. So you call them and they'll unlock it. That means remove the carrier restrictions. Verizon, because they lost a battle with the FCC over another matter, is required to keep their phones unlocked. But that's just the first part of choosing a cell phone. The other part of choosing a cell phone is making sure that the radios in the cell phone work with the frequencies you want to use. So, and in the old days, there were two different styles. Sprint and Verizon used CDMA. T-Mobile and AT&T used GSM. Most of the world is GSM. Those differences are kind of going away. Everybody's moving to LTE, and it won't matter anymore. But maybe an older service like Air Voice requires a CDMA-capable phone. So if you are buying a phone to work with Air Voice, definitely get the CDMA phone. It seems to have worked perfectly well with the other phones you tried. I guess they had CDMA capabilities. But you want a phone that'll work with the Verizon network specifically, because that's, I guess, what AirVoice uses. Although I see they also do AT&T, so now I'm confused. Just as I ran out of time, I said, I see an AirVoice is an AT&T carrier. Maybe they use both. They told you that you should be compatible with Verizon. Is that what they said?
Oh, they said any Moto G works, but
yeah, those are usually GSM phones, and I see that AirVoice is an AT&T MVNO, which means they're GSM, not CDMA, not Verizon.
GSM.
They're GSM,
Okay.
they're not Verizon.
Okay.
So that's why that makes sense, because that Moto is an usually unlocked GSM. Samsung
That'll
can
work.
any unlocked GSM should work.
Okay, that's great
Now-
because I want to get a Moto G. That's as per
Yeah,
your
those should work. Those are great. The G6 or the G7, the new one, those are great little phones. You're going to love them. They're not expensive. And and make sure you just get one that's designed to work with AT&T. It should work fine. The one other thing you might have to do, although you've never had to do it before, sometimes you have to go into the settings and set what's called the APN address. But if you do have to do the APN settings, you could simply Google AirVoice and APN, and somebody will have printed, probably AirVoice, will have printed the appropriate settings in the APN. Usually you don't have to do that. It's APN is how you get your data. It's the access point number or name, I guess. It's how you get your data.
Okay, so I'm gonna get the AT&T.
AT&T version should work. Yep.
Okay, with AirVoice Wireless. Thank you so much, Leo.
You're very welcome. Thanks for calling. Take care.
You're welcome. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Well, there you go. Scooter X just Googled AirVoice and Motorola G6, and he found the APN settings. So there you go. You probably don't have to change those, but yeah, they're an AT&T MVNO, so you want to get a phone that works with AT&T. That's the bottom line. Thank you, Scooter X. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888, ask Leo. The phone number. So, just to be clear, I checked the internet, and AirVoice is what we call an MVNO, a mobile virtual network operator. There are many of these. You know, there's 4 big cell phone companies in America. There are soon to be 3, AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, and Verizon. But there are a lot of other smaller carriers who ride on their wires. In this case, AirVoice, an MVNO, uses AT&T's towers. So if you're going to use a phone with the AirVoice service, you'll want to get a phone that's compatible with AT&T's cellular radios, data and voice. And nowadays, it's all gotten a lot simpler thanks to LTE. Just make sure it supports LTE and the LTE radios that AT&T supports. It is a little complicated because as an MVNO, AirVoice doesn't have to use all of those frequencies. May not even be allowed to. I don't know what their deal with AT&T is. So it's always a good idea. Ask the carrier, what phones do you recommend? Rich, Worcester, Massachusetts. Hello, Rich. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hey, Leo. Thank you for taking my call. Quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
I've been listening to a lot of that YouTube lately.
Yeah.
They've got these guys out there that are videoing and looking to get their First Amendment rights recognized. I'm looking for a camera that I can do this with, but something that I can also edit and turn around and add my text to it, so on and so forth. You are aware of anything like this here?
Oh, you want to edit in the camera?
Yes.
All right. So the First Amendment, as you know,
freedom of speech.
Basically freedom of speech. Congress should make no law concerning religion, expression, assembly, and the right to petition. In other words, Congress cannot prevent you from saying what you think. And there are some exceptions. The Supreme Court has noted, but in general, government is not allowed to abridge your freedom of speech or of the press.
Well, also, they can't bridge you from taking videos either.
Right. Now, now I see where you might be going on this. So obviously, YouTube can. YouTube is a private enterprise. Any private enterprise can abridge your freedom of speech. They're not bound by the First Amendment. Only government is.
Uh-huh.
And what do you want to use? What do you actually want to record with this that you're afraid the government might want to stop you? You want to record police activity?
Any kind of activity. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on around us, as you well know. I want to be able to stand on a street corner. As long as I'm in a public way, I don't think anybody can do anything to me. I don't have to release my name or any of that stuff. Although living in the Commonwealth is a big difference.
Yes, that's right.
Correct?
That's right. You're in Massachusetts. Yeah. However, federal law most always, especially the Constitution, trumps any state law. I do have to point out there have been some recent court decisions about recording police limiting citizens' rights, and those are maybe muddying the waters a little bit. So this is something the police don't like, and so it's just something to be aware of. We won't prevent you from being arrested. You may get arrested, and then you say, well, I want to stand on my First Amendment rights, and they'll say, fine, we'll see you in court. And you may have to appeal it all the way up to the Supreme Court. Who knows? So it could be a costly thing. But I'm going to answer your tech question. I'm not a lawyer.
Okay.
I'm not a lawyer. But I would suggest you go out and read a little bit. My son is an aspiring journalist, and there are definitely some guidelines people need to know, even if you're a journalist acting in a journalistic capability, about what you can record. You do have a First Amendment right to record. The officer in this case came up to my son and said, give me your camera. I want to delete those pictures. He said, no, I'm working for the school newspaper. And they held him there for a while, but eventually they had to let him go because he did have the right to do that. They have the right to arrest you, even if it's an illegal arrest. You have the right to defend yourself in court. I'm just pointing that off. You also can't break laws while filming. You have to be careful about wiretapping laws. If you're in the Northeast, it's okay to record an officer as long as you do it openly and the officer knows you're recording him. You can't do it in secret. So you want a camera that he can see.
Correct.
And again, I would read up on your practical rights as opposed to your theoretical rights before you do it. So you want a camera. You can record the video. You want to be able to upload it to YouTube instantly?
Correct.
Okay. What would be the best camera? So that means you want to be able to cut it in the camera. I would say, honestly, the best solution for this is any smartphone. Because a smartphone is more than a video camera. It's a computer. And almost all smartphones have video editing capabilities, plus they have full-time internet connections, so you can upload them immediately. Most smartphones will even stream live to YouTube and other video sites.
Correct. Because I have the 6S the same way as your mom does.
Perfect choice.
I love that camera. It's an awesome phone.
Perfect choice.
Like I said, when I watch these videos on YouTube, I am amazed at how many people don't really know the law as far as the First Amendment goes.
I agree.
I agree. Some of this stuff has been done in Massachusetts as well. A lot of it's done in Texas and in your state, California. And the way they respond to these police officers is a little bit over the top as far as I'm concerned. But, they use a lot of some really nasty words. And I said, whoa, I don't believe how they can do this and get away with it. But they do. And it's on YouTube.
Article I'll put in the link in the show notes. The chat room just gave me from newsmaven.io. A federal judge, this was a week ago, ordered the Boston Police and Suffolk County DA's office to tell all law enforcement officers and prosecutors that individuals in the state of Massachusetts have the right to film you.
Correct.
Even secretly.
And you can also ask for their name and badge number. Some of them won't release it, but, they're supposed to. So according to the Constitution, I said, it's getting crazier by the day. You know what the world is like today anyway.
I know, and I would emphasize that it's the right to hire a lawyer, as some people would put it. So, you can say it. And most officers, and I think this is interesting that this ruling from a federal judge said Boston police have to inform all officers you cannot arrest a citizen for filming you in public, whether it's secretly or not. It's not illegal. They have the right to do that. But remember, they had to tell the police that because they were arresting people. So,
right.
You may get arrested. You may have to defend yourself, but I think ultimately you'll win.
Well, considering my age, I don't know how far they're going to get. I mean, I'm almost 80.
Yeah.
But, I mean, still, I'm an adventurous person. I want to see what's going on around me.
Good for you. And that's what I told my son. I said, I referred him to a number of good websites run by people like the Associated Press. I said, learn your rights as a reporter. No, you're doing a very important thing, speaking truth to power. And that's an important part of our American system, and I encouraged him to do it. I said, you need to know what your rights are, and then stand up for them. And he said, he was kind of shaken up. He said, did I do the right thing? I said, you absolutely did. He said, they wanted my camera. I said, you did the right thing. He said, do not give it to them.
They kind of didn't put their hands on you. That's called,
I know, but they do all the time. I'm just going to point that out.
They don't have that right.
They may not have the right. But, when you're on the street, possession is 9/10 of the law or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but Leo, you said you're on the street. You're on public property.
I know. You can argue that all you want. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm 100% agreeing with you.
Yeah, what are they hiding then?
I just don't want you to get hurt.
Yeah, but what do they not want you to know? Why are they hiding all this stuff?
Well, to put myself in the position of law enforcement, they feel like it's an invasion of privacy, that they're trying to do their job. It's a tough job. It's a hard enough job to do without a bunch of people filming them. I think they, at this point, have to get over it. Most police now wear body cameras. And frankly, if you're in the public at any time, there's people with camera phones pointed at you all the time. There's nothing private anymore for anybody. I understand how law enforcement feels, how any individual feels, but the law is the law. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888. Ask Leo. Lyle's on the line from Jackson, Mississippi. Hey, Lyle.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fine.
How's your Lyle? Do you have that big band, Lyle Lovett, and what is the name of that band, Lyle Lovett and the?
Yes. No, I'm not. No. I'm originally from New Orleans, so.
Oh, I love New Orleans. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What can I do for you?
Yes, I'm looking for. It might be. I don't know if it's futuristic, but I remember seeing years ago a tracking device for kids. You put in kids' shoes.
Yeah.
In case they get taken away or a dog might get lost, and you might want to use a GPS to find them. And I know it's not going to be a cell phone because kids don't. I know no kids do carry it, but that's the first thing a person who kidnapped kids would throw away is a cell phone.
That's right. And in fact, if you had there's a watch called a Lil Tracker, $69 that does that. But again, same thing. If maybe a watch the bad guy wouldn't notice, but and there are little trackers you can put in your shoes that will do that. There are a number of them. So yes, this is not futuristic. This exists.
Okay.
Absolutely. There's the Trax Play. Almost all of them have, the Trax Play is $99, but then there's a monthly subscription. I think it's $10 a month. Almost all of them have that because basically they're using the cell network. The nice thing about the Trax Play is you can do something called geofencing, where you can say, all right, I want an alert if the kid ever goes outside this area. If they leave the block, I want to know. And that's kind of cool, too, not just for kidnapping, but in case your kid decides he wants to go downtown. Right? Yeah. So there are a ton of ideas. Do you have a grandkid or a kid who you want to keep an eye on?
Well, just my kids, and plus, just in case, kids are always getting taken, and you don't hear about it until later on. At least on the news, they were kidnapped for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Hear about it.
Yeah, so you definitely want something that the kidnapper wouldn't look at and say, oh, I know what that is. I always talk about, the spy movies. Jason Bourne, I don't know why, but all the Jason Bourne movies begin with a damsel in distress, right? Attractive, I don't know why. Of course I know why. An attractive young lady who's being chased by the bad guys. Jason Bourne grabs her, pulls her into a Fiat, drives off. What's the first thing Jason Bourne does? He takes the cell phone. He says, give me your cell phone. And he throws it out the window. Or maybe he breaks it in half first because that's more dramatic. And he throws it out the window. Why? Because, well, as you know, if you've got a cell phone, everybody knows where you are all the time, including Google. So that perhaps a good idea to have something a little more discreet. There's quite a few devices. I'm actually on a site called Tom's Guide I'll put a link in the show notes to this. They have an article that came out just a couple of weeks ago, the best GPS trackers for kids 2019. And it mentions a whole bunch of different ones. I like the watch because it just looks like a kid's watch. But you're going to have to get a SIM card for that to get the location in there. And they say the Geo bit, or the best, the Trax Play is the one they like. $99 on the Amazon Marketplace. Service $4 a month with a 2-year agreement. Small enough to put, maybe not in a shoe, but certainly in a backpack or a pocket. Problem is, it does say right on the front, Trax. That might be kind of a giveaway. Scott, Long Beach, California. Hi, Scott. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hi, Leo. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for
calling. I have an Android telephone, cell phone, and it just seems that these apps, it's a contact app, it's a half a gigabyte, it's doing weekly updates of 50 to 100 megabytes. I guess I'm frustrated because Android seems to be the original setup is to use their cloud when I want things local. It seems that it kind of deters me taking control and taking the power back. They seem to be just telling me what they think I ought to be doing versus giving me the reins. It's just so many applications. I think there's 65 applications running in the background. I have two questions. First of all, is there a ranking system that's unbiased for the Google Play Store? And the second is possibly a software that gives me the power back and starts shutting this stuff off so that I'm more local versus so spread out across their cloud and technology.
Yeah. So great questions. And it really, some of this is coming from a point of view about Google. I don't want them to know anything about me. And remember that the people who make Google's stuff could also be coming from the point of view we want to give you more functionality. So it's a he said, she said, or a he said, Google said. And if your attitude is, well, I don't want them spying on me, you're going to be contrary to what Google thinks most people want. And certainly I think the connectivity offered by modern smartphones is very useful. And so I turn on all those features. By the way, it's not just Google. Washington Post last week had a very good, eye-opening article about Apple's iPhones. The iPhones Apple may say we protect your privacy, and what happens on the iPhone stays on the iPhone. But as soon as you add apps to any phone, Apple or Android, they're going to phone home. The Washington Post found that 5,400 hidden app trackers, many of which would run, that was over a week, many of which would run overnight. Microsoft's OneDrive, Mint, Nike, DoorDash, Spotify, Yelp, the Weather Channel, Citizen, even the Washington Post's own app were phoning home, often with personally identifiable information. So this is the way of the world. But you don't have to live in that world. So you'll notice on both iOS and Android, you can go into the app settings and tell each app whether they have access to the internet. You can turn off their cell access, for instance, and only have them go on Wi-Fi, or turn off their access entirely. Now, most people, I'm including myself, I want my phone book and my contacts and my calendar to update with Google where I store them so that I can update them on the desktop and they'll go to the phone and vice versa. I want that kind of synchronization. But if you don't want that, if you want your data to only live on the phone and nowhere else, you can disable those apps' data connection. They won't be able to phone home. You can do that with every app on an iPhone and an Android phone. The one exception on the iPhone is you probably can't do that to Apple's own apps. Apple always has different rules for their own stuff. But on an Android phone, you can. You can say, I don't want them to phone home. I don't want any data access. You asked about Play Store ratings. Those ratings are fair, I think, because they come from users. I don't know what other way you could get fair ratings. If you want to read reviews of apps, you can do that. You can Google almost any app and find an independent review. But honestly, the ratings on the Play Store, both Apple and Google, come from users. And both companies try hard to make sure that their that, they're not fake ratings from a competitor, let's say, or from the app's developer himself. I always read the reviews with a grain of salt. I usually take off the worst reviews and the best reviews, and the stuff in the middle usually seems to me pretty accurate. So I think those Play Store ratings are useful as anything else is going to be. I mean, would you prefer to trust a single reviewer? Maybe. Then you can get that information as well. So in some ways, I think Android actually is better for this than Apple, because Android is really all about settings and giving you more capabilities. Apple's all about, we'll figure out how to do it right, and we'll do it for you. And I have to point out, third-party apps on iOS also phone home. They're maybe not phoning Google, but they phone home. Thanks to our musical director, Big Pee-wee, for playing the discs for us today. Our phone angel, Kim Schaffer, for answering your calls. Most importantly, thanks to you for listening. And for those of you who called, thank you. You're my co-hosts on the show each and every week. The website, techguylabs.com. And, of course, our podcasts all week long at twit.tv. I'm Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. I'll see you next time. Have a great Geek Week. Well, that's it for the Tech Guy Show for today. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget, TWIT, T-W-I-T. It stands for This Week in Tech, and you'll find it at twit.tv, including the podcasts for this show. We talk about Windows on Windows Weekly, Macintosh on Mac Break Weekly, iPads, iPhones, Apple Watches on iOS Today, security on Security Now. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And, of course, the big show every Sunday afternoon, This Week in Tech. You'll find it all at twit.tv. And I'll be back next week with another great Tech Guys show. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.